Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we distill complex ideas from lots of sources into insights you can use, helping you get well-informed, fast. Today, we're plunging into some really, let's say, contrarian ideas about HR, competence, and maybe why organizations seem to struggle so much in, well, this incredibly fast-paced world. If you're ready to challenge some assumptions and maybe have a few aha moments, definitely follow and subscribe to The Deep Dive. We're always digging into fascinating topics like this. Our main source today, it's a short, but wow, really thought-provoking article by Silvia Ola. It's called Incompetent People Rely on Rules. Pretty direct title.
Yeah, it really is. And our mission today is to unpack Ola's ideas. They're provocative, definitely. We'll look at what she thinks true competence really is, especially when you're up against complex problems that keep changing, and maybe counterintuitively, why just sticking to rules, policies, frameworks, why that might actually be holding organizations back. It challenges a lot of standard thinking.
Okay, yeah, let's just jump straight into it. Ola doesn't really pull any punches, does she? Her opening statement just grabs you. Be wary about the people who want a three-step process, rules, policies, or a framework to solve and address problems. They are the incompetent ones. I mean, this is a bold claim. What's she really getting at there? How does that challenge how we normally think about, following the rules?
Well, what's really key here is Ola's definition of competence. It goes way beyond just ticking boxes or following instructions. She argues that truly competent people, they don't just follow rules blindly. They get the purpose behind the rule, they understand the intent, and crucially, they also get the potential consequences if that rule wasn't there or if it was applied badly. So with that deeper understanding, they use their expertise, they evaluate different options, weigh things up, and then they create solutions that actually fit the specific problem. Incompetent people, Ola says, just follow the rules. They don't have that underlying grasp. For them, the rule is the answer. Full stop.
Huh. So it's not about ignoring rules. It's about a level of understanding that goes beyond them. It almost sounds like competent folks might even sometimes need to break the rules. Not because they're rebels, but because they see the bigger picture, the complexities that a rigid rule just can't cover. Is that fair?
Exactly. They see the gray areas because they understand the landscape. But you raise a good point. Doesn't that create risk or inconsistency?
Yeah. How do you balance that kind of adaptive thinking with needing some baseline structure and, fairness for everyone?
Well, Ola's argument is that the risk isn't really incompetence operating in the gray. The real risk is incompetence trying to navigate those gray areas without understanding the principles. Competent people know when a rule applies and when, maybe, sticking to it rigidly would actually undermine the whole point. They're not being random, they're making informed judgments. The problem comes when organizations try to jam complex dynamic situations into simple rule boxes. That's when things go wrong. Trying for perfect consistency can kill effective problem solving.
And Ola dives into a specific example of this, right? Focusing on middle management. She points out this kind of paradox. She says they're often the worst when it comes to black and white decision-making. They'll rigidly enforce HR policies. We must follow the policy if someone steps out of line.
Yeah.
But then for their own job tasks, they suddenly twist and bend rules as they like, saying, oh, this is just a guideline. What's the deal with that difference?
It's a really interesting observation, isn't it? Ola suggests it's about being competent in their craft. So a middle manager might be, really skilled in their specific area, engineering, marketing, whatever. They get the nuances, the goals, so they feel comfortable bending guidelines there to get the job done. They have that adaptive intelligence we talked about. But, and this is the key part, Ola implies they often don't have that same deep competence when it comes to, say, HR policies or genuine people leadership. It's messier, more human. So in that area, they fall back on rigid rules because they maybe don't fully grasp the policy's deeper purpose or the human dynamics. They lack the competence there. And this just reinforces her main point. We don't always need another framework, another three-step process. What we need are actual experts who can navigate the complexities within whatever framework exists, using judgment, not just following steps.
That really shifts the focus, doesn't it? From finding the perfect system to actually cultivating competent problem solvers everywhere in the organization. And speaking of problems, Ola brings up this idea that feels so true. Every problem has a solution, but every solution creates another set of problems. What does that mean for companies trying to be stable and efficient?
Yeah, it kind of forces us to rethink what problem solving even is. Ola says competent people, they sort of appreciate this cycle. They get it. They understand solving one thing doesn't mean problems vanish forever. It often just reveals or creates new challenges. It's iterative, ongoing. Think about implementing new software, right? Solves one problem maybe, but bam, new issues with training, integration, bugs.
Right, always something else.
But Ola points out, incompetent people think if I find a method to solve this problem, then I eliminate the problem. They're looking for that magic bullet, the final fix. And she stresses, only competence can beat the dynamics of a problem solved, a problem created. You need that ability to constantly adapt, foresee, and respond. You can't just find one answer and stop. You have to embrace the motion.
It's like that game, whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
But you need the skill not just to hit the mole, but to guess where the next one's coming from. And she tells a great story about this, right? With an HR director and a new employee experience program, it had 7 pillars: attract, hire, onboard, motivate, perform, develop, exit. What happened there?
Right. So Ola presents this whole toolkit, pretty comprehensive, with guidelines for each stage, a solid framework. But the HR director didn't just want guidance. She wanted Ola to tell her exactly what to do so she can implement it, like a perfect, unchanging script.
Looking for the answer.
Exactly. And Ola's response was pretty blunt. Look, I can tell you what to do, but once I'm gone, you will face changes and new problems, and you can use your experience, knowledge, and expertise to solve them as they occur, because they will. And the HR director's reaction was so telling. So this won't fix all my problems.
Wow.
Yeah. And Ola just lays it out. It would if we stopped the world the moment you implemented all these. It just perfectly shows that desire for a final static solution that just isn't realistic.
That's a major reality check. And it kind of leads into her view on change management experts, calling them BS. That seems pretty harsh. What's her reasoning?
Well, it's not that she thinks change doesn't need managing or that guidance is useless. Her point is more fundamental. She says, things change, and change will be handled by competence, not by a change management expert. A new framework, or a 5-step rule. Frameworks are useful, sure, for designing solutions, for structuring things, but, and this is critical, you cannot use them without understanding the problems.
Okay, so the understanding has to come first.
Precisely. And incompetence, by its nature, lacks that deep problem understanding. If you don't truly get the problem, its roots, its context, how it might evolve, how can you possibly know if the framework or the expert advice you're using is the right fit? So, for Ola, real competence is the engine of change and adaptation, not just applying some generic 5-step plan without that deep insight. The competence is knowing how and when to use the tools, or even when to invent a new tool.
Okay, this feels like the absolute core of it. Yeah. The biggest takeaway, maybe. She connects everything by saying, so maybe it is not that people don't like change, and therefore it is the reason organizations struggle. Maybe we struggle because we have incompetent people, and incompetence doesn't like change. It likes frameworks, methods, policies, and clear rules, but it doesn't work in a world where everything changes so fast. That just flips the script on why organizations get stuck. Can you unpack that link more? Competence, incompetence, and adapting to change.
Yeah, this is absolutely central. Think about it. A world that changes fast makes fixed rules obsolete quickly. Things become unpredictable. So what you need is constant critical thinking, judging situations on the fly, creative problem solving. That's what competence brings. But incompetence, as Ola defines it, hates that. It relies on the safety of clear rules because it doesn't have the tools or the confidence to handle ambiguity, to understand the underlying problem deeply. So when the rules stop working because the world changed, incompetent individuals resist. They cling to the old way. They don't adapt because they can't, fundamentally. And that individual struggle, it scales up. It becomes organizational inertia, missed chances, problems that just won't go away. So it's not just people hate change. It's that incompetence is fundamentally mismatched with a fast-changing reality. It needs stability that doesn't exist anymore.
That explains so much about resistance to innovation or new strategies. It's a competence gap manifesting as fear of change. And she gives that case study, the test for you, that shows this so clearly. The scenario with gross misconduct, like stealing.
Yes, it's a brilliant illustration. So she presents this stealing scenario first to mid-management, including HR. Their response, immediate, uniform. Fire the person. It is gross misconduct and a breach of trust. And if we don't fire the person, we show others that it is okay to steal.
Black and white. Follow the rule.
Exactly. Rule-based, focused entirely on the policy and the immediate obvious consequence, very automatic. But then she gives the same scenario to senior leaders, including HR, the one she calls highly competent. Their reaction, totally different. They don't go straight to firing. Instead, she says they ask millions of questions.
Digging deeper.
Right. They evaluate the consequences of each decision. They think about ripples. And crucially, they ask this, what are we going to show the team if we fire the person or if we don't? And Ola points out, and their answer is not the same as the mid-management of we will show it is okay to steal. They're thinking culture, context, long-term impact, values, trust, much broader.
The difference is huge. One group just applies the rule and the standard interpretation. The other group uses the situation as a starting point to think about the whole system, the culture, what messages they're sending, the long-term health of the organization. It's system-level thinking versus just rule following.
Precisely. It shows that competence isn't just knowing rules or even when to bend them slightly. It's about understanding the entire complex system and making decisions aligned with bigger, sometimes competing goals.
So let's recap this quickly. Sylvia Law's core message, really, is that true competence isn't about finding the perfect rule book. It's about deep, adaptive understanding, navigating complexity, and responding effectively when everything keeps changing. It's about expertise over mere process following, a real call for developing genuine competence, not just more guidelines.
Absolutely. And maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Think about a challenge you're facing right now. Could be work, could be anywhere. Are you looking for that simple rule, that quick fix, that one and done solution? Or are you really leaning into the, let's be honest, messy process of understanding the problem itself? Appreciating that solving this might just create the next challenge, a challenge that maybe you, with your competence, are perfectly placed to tackle next.
That's a great question to ponder. It definitely shifts the perspective. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Sylvia Ola's really challenging ideas. If this got you thinking, please do follow and subscribe to The Deep Dive. We bring you more contrarian ideas and deep explorations every time. We'll see you next time.